We're good. Got it. Okay. I saw your little note, Stiv, about the bio. It is a fabulous bio that I have on Stiv Wilson, but for an etiquette would be that you all would hear that bio, and hopefully maybe you've seen our newsletter and you can read it there. But the fabulous thing that I've discovered while stalking Stiv Wilson is that there is a lot to Google. So if there's anything you want to know about Stiv Wilson, you can just Google it for more information. So so to give the rundown though, because we can't not give you an intro, is just that first, congratulations for winning many awards, but an Emmy for The Story of Plastic. So that's very exciting for your first film length documentary. So congratulations on that. A couple other things that I just thought were really cool is that you were integral in finding microbeads in the Great Lakes, and that spurred you into some political action, and that you had the Plastic Free Waters Act passed and signed into law by Obama in 2015. So I thought that was really cool. The other thing that I thought was so cool, because I've followed for so long Five Gyres and the story of stuff, that you were also the communications and policy director for Five Gyres Institute, and you helped start Five Gyres, which I thought was super cool. And you were also the director of campaigns for Story of Stuff. And Stiv Wilson has also done a lot of researching and publishing, and yeah, very exciting stuff. If there's anything that I forgot, Stiv, you'll have to put it in.
No problem. I figure we're like 13 people on here, so I don't want to like set this up as like you can't talk to me because I've done a bunch of shit in my bio. So I just want to give you like a little overview of how Story of Plastic came into being and how I got my start. And I want to do this, so please indulge me, because Surfrider is the reason I'm an activist. So I started surfing when I was 30. I'm 49. Well, I'll be 49 tomorrow. But I started surfing in Oregon, which is a cold ass place to start surfing. And I was on a beach at Cape Lookout and saw a bunch of plastic. And I wasn't really an environmentalist at this time. I mean, I was a kind of an arty kind of person. And it was the aesthetics of it. It was it being unnatural, incongruent to the like beautiful order in which I understood this place. And that really like put me, I was a journalist at the time, and it just put me down a rabbit hole. That led me to Anna and Marcus at Five Gyres, and jumped on one of the boats to the North Atlantic Gyre and was like, oh, in the middle of the ocean, really? Like 2 weeks from land, and quit my job. I was doing a media company at that time, living in Portland. And, you know, in increasingly getting involved in my Portland chapter of Surfrider. And we passed a bag ban in Portland. That was my first campaign. I don't even know, 14 years ago, 15 years. I'm not sure. But the mayor at that time, Sam Adams, his policy director was a woman named Megan Ponder, who is my production partner in The Story of Plastic. So it was this like kind of beautiful moment where I learned my chops through being a Surfrider activist, and came up in the ranks and met like a really good thought partner, and we ended up doing some cool stuff. So fast forward 5 Gyres, we sailed around the world. We published the first ever global estimate of plastics in the ocean, which all of us will tell you is way underestimated, even with, you know, the best available sort of technical ability to sample the ocean surface, which was dropping a net called the manta trawl every 50 nautical miles through all 5 subtropical oceanic gyres. And that paper sort of like really was the seminal moment for 5 gyres. And then we started looking at like, what are we going to do about this? And I'm from Minneapolis originally and went to the Great Lakes because I was like, our research director, good friend of mine, Marcus Erickson, Dr. Marcus Erickson, 5 gyres founder. He was like, what, the Great Lakes, you know? And I was like, yeah, like, let's go look. And that actually was like a catalyst for an incredible plastic movement, both in Canada and, you know, Jacques Cousteau says, we protect what we love. And that meant something to people there. I'm from the Midwest, I'm from Minneapolis. Great Lakes are our ocean. I mean, we have chapters in Superior and what is it? Wisconsin? Oh, it's the horse, Sheboygan as well. So anyways, we discovered microbeads, had this amazing policy run. At that time, I started Story of Stuff, and you know, Story of Stuff was a challenging place because it's such a sort of like picture of the world, but I was able to conceive this film that I wanted to do after doing the gyres, after being and seeing this shit firsthand in the oceans. I wanted to know where it came from, and I wanted to know what the human cost was, which is where my career is now. It is very much upstream in the plastics, system. So I took a trip to the Philippines, and I was standing in a landfill in Manila called Smoky Mountain. It's called Smoky Mountain because there's a lot of organic matter that is buried in it, and the pressure has made it ignite. So it's venting methane and it smokes. There are people who live in Smoky Mountain who mine it for things that they can sell. Average wage is about $1.50, $2 a day. Mostly metals is what they're looking for, nails. And that sort of buys rice and clean water. And around them are all these waste picker collectives and like straight up in the developing world, the only valuable material is PET, #1 plastics. Like nobody's shampoo bottle, detergent bottle, but in the developing world, it's all single-use sachets. But that's it, that's what they're looking for. That's where the money is. So I started to really interface with people who were in this waste stream, in part of the system. And that led me, I called Megan from a hotel in Manila when Duterte was being elected. It was the elections. It was a crazy time. It was tough because I was like so emotionally overwhelmed, and there was a national liquor ban, so I couldn't even have a beer because in elections, like so much violence like erupts that. But the Filipino people are my heart. Like I got really deep with that culture, and if you are looking for a place to go see the most pristine coral reefs on planet Earth, like the outreaching, I mean, there's like 1,500 islands in the Philippines. Like it's it is an amazing place. People are amazing. They will like shirt off their back, kind of like cool people. Anyway, so I fell in love with this culture, met all these amazing waste picker people. And then I met a vet in Story of Plastic who was like, this is where plastic comes from. And so in real time, I added that to the film. It was $483,000 is what we spent minus my salary when I was looking at Story of Stuff. I hired my own crew, external, and we got very tight making this movie. It was very emotionally challenging. But the goal of it was to tell the entire system of plastic from the perspective of people, both in leadership on the front lines, but both in harm's way. Because our theory of change at Peak Plastic Foundation and the new film we're about to shoot in June is that if we don't resource and have the people at the front line setting the table on policy, we can't win. Like, there are so many people affected by this plastic supply chain, and so few of them are actually engaged in the right sort of sense of the narrative that we're working to shift. And, you know, I mean, like, people, very disparate cultures, very different sort of walks of life and lived experience, but they all, the common denominator is this convenience culture, this reliance on fossil fuels, and fossil fuels pivoting to a new long-term growth strategy, and that is plastics. So with that, I'm going to shut up. I just wanted to give you a little bit of background, and I'm really honored. You know, I like typically do this stuff and have speaking fees and all that jazz. It's my birthday tomorrow. I'm up on Orcas Island. I'm so happy to be back in the Pacific Northwest. California is an amazing place, but it's not my place. And I'm happy to be back up here. I'm hoping to get to know you all and get involved in your campaigns. The last thing I want to say is, like, I've done a lot of stuff in my life. I've accomplished some shit, and it's cool, but I'm an approachable, like, down to earth dude. So please, like, talk to me like I'm human. Thanks. And I'd love to answer any questions on this stuff.
Okay, thanks, Stiv. I'm hoping that lots of people brought questions. I know, Joe, you emailed in some great questions, but I want to start off with just like something more serious. And that's about the guy that was about halfway through the film. He was in Texas. And I was wondering what your thoughts are about his denim on denim look.
Are you talking about, like, I think you're talking about the guy who's, and I can't reveal his name because.
No, I know.
Pretty, yeah. So this guy, man, he was such a trip. I mean, he was a career believer, you know, like, he is like the Thanksgiving, like, transformation you want to have happen with your family that never happens, or like he was that guy who was so deep one way, and then empirically, objectively, no one, like, putting flyers on his door smelled, looked like, and he was like, I get it. I know what this is about, and this is wrong. And so, yeah, I mean, he owns denim because he is a guy who needs denim. He's a Carhartt and denim dude. So yeah. I approve of his look.
Yeah, excellent. Then something that's a little bit lighter to think about. And what is your vision for a plastic-free future?
I mean, I think one of the things we struggle with in this movement is, you know, anybody who's worked on policy, as soon as you eliminate something from a materials economy, they're like, well, what's the viable substitution? And I want to, like, quit answering that question as like, I don't have the $4 million R&D budget, you know, like, figure it out. This, like, that's not my question to answer, frankly. But we have to get off of fossil fuels. We know this. What's funny is the oil majors know this too. They actually know this. They're just trying to suck as much money out as they can before it's banned out. I mean, because the evidence, you know, like, Trump's gonna die and fail. Sorry, I wear my shit on my sleeves. Like, but like that, some old men are gonna die, and like, the new wave of people is tolerant, is interested, is, like, engaged. And, like, my vision is somebody who can actually hold the torch of a fossil-free future, because like the only future for fossil fuels right now is plastic. That's it. 50% within like 3 years. Like 50% of fracked gas. Like, and even like new fracking wells, 100% for ethane crackers for making plastic. So we got to hit it at the source. We got to challenge the permits. We have to resource the frontline communities that live around these things, because their stories are so authentic. And if you want to know what my theory of change is, like and what our new film is going to say straight up, so far the narrative on plastic has been, it kills things downstream. It's tough on developing world nations. It's bad for biodiversity. But industry has looked at that and said that is not our problem, because it's after it's been used. But the people who live around where this is being made can't breathe, they can't drink the water, and it's disproportionately, I mean, not even disproportionately, it's predicated on fucking Black and brown people. Like it is. I mean, straight up, I cannot say it any differently, and I can give you a million footnotes if you want to question it, but it is. And that is like, my vision is empowering people who are in harm's way the most with resources and microphones to reshape the narrative about what plastic does in this country, who it affects, who it harms. So we can start having conversations in the boardroom of Procter and Gamble that are genocide was committed to make potato chip bags, you know, well, not Procter and Gamble, but PepsiCo or whatever, well, toothpaste tubes. Like, that's my vision for a plastic free future, because all the downstream policy is super important for elevating the issue and elevating the movement around it. But we're whack-a-mole there, you know, like these people don't care what you make out of this stuff coming out of the ground. They just want to like manufacture a market for it.
Yeah.
Sorry, that was like a big answer, but that is one that is pretty much like, yeah, that's like,
Yeah.
that's my heart.
Yeah, that was good. That's what I was hoping for. I guess my other question before we move to anyone else in the audience is, I'm just curious, like I haven't traveled to those places that you've been. I've only seen pictures. And after an hour and 30 minutes of the film, the first time I watched it, when it first came out, that, you know, the despair a little bit and the heartache for the future. And I guess I'm kind of curious, like, how do you've been there and you've seen it and you've talked to these people with these heartbreaking stories. Like, how do you retain your hope and your stamina to keep going? I mean, I sort of know, but I don't know. I would just like to hear what, you know, besides maybe yoga and meditation, like what do you tell yourself to continue your work?
It's a tough question to answer. There's a couple of things though that like, and I appreciate this, and I appreciate the like heart and passion with which you asked it. I would say it's tough. I had straight up PTSD from like shooting in Indonesia and India, and like the stuff we saw in China. Not that it wasn't like, it was on par with some of the India, and I understand that some of the stuff didn't get into the film, right? Specifically China, because Mao Da, who's featured in there very quickly, and Li Wen Chen. Like, these two people are amazing. And they were giving me interviews that were like, I mean, I did all the interviews in this film. I like, sat in front of these people. And Mao Da was like telling me everything. And I was like, dude, and he's like a PhD, like, I mean, Mao Da on the international stage is like a badass. And he was like telling me everything. And I was like, dude, you can't tell me this stuff. And he's like, what do you mean? And I'm like, you have to talk like you're talking to the Beijing central government right now, because they're gonna see this. And so he was like, oh, so, okay. So, but what we filmed there, and like, yeah. I think the one thing I would say, in China, the people who are living in those conditions are really actually miserable. In Indonesia, Philippines, Thailand, Vietnam, the spirit of the culture, like, folks, this is a baseline reality. And so they're raising children, and especially in Indonesia, where it's like predominantly Muslim, I mean, like 95%, I think. There's a very like strong community bond. There's poverty, but there isn't, I mean, it's all relative. Like, I know, like, the only way you make movies is knowing rich people, and I know a lot of miserable rich people, and I met a lot of people who are like living on the edge of that stuff, who were happier than, a lot of people I meet, who are at the top of their career or whatever. So I think it's all relative. I think for Western viewers, and this is something we struggled in the film, because everybody was like, watch out for pollution porn. And I was like, the best part was Priggy. Priggy is like a very good friend of mine in Indonesia, and he is like, I mean, you get like butterflies around that dude. He levitates. He's like the smartest, like theatrical activist, direct action dude I've ever met in my life. Like, he's a beautiful soul, his whole family. But like, he was like, I listened to him speak, and he was like, we have this question, and it was like, it's hard for people to see this stuff. And he was like, I don't give a shit. Like, you're importing this into my country. Like, look at it. I'm sorry it makes you uncomfortable. So it was a weird balance. So the one thing I do want to like emphasize, what gives me hope, is that I'm a strategist, because I don't believe hope is a strategy. And our work is about shifting a narrative to empower like people who, and not from like a white savior standpoint, like we're very careful about staying in the background, because our work is about elevating other people. It straight up, we're a calculated PR agency. That's what I do. Because I've had my time in the light, like, and I did the like, I'm a man in my 30s and my ego is being stroked and cute girls are talking to me kind of stuff. Like, I'm done with that. Like, we need an activist factory. Like, we need to like bring people up. Like, that's what like our work's about in the future. So like, I saw what it did. Like, Tiza became like somebody like from, and I don't want to take credit for this. All I did is point a camera in Tiza's direction. So like, I want to be very careful here. But I saw the effect of what Story of Plastic did to build power for every single person featured in that. And like, if I can continue to do that with my best friend in a nonprofit setting, with my fiscal sponsor being chill, and I can like actually execute a vision on the cusp of being 50 years old and raise my 2 children in that world and that vision, that's what keeps me going. Long ass answer.
Well, that's why we have you here, Stiv, so we can hear all of your long ass answers. Hey, Joe, if you're on still, did you want to ask one of your questions that you had emailed in?
Sure, sure. Yeah, Stiv, your comments about the Philippines. I went to the Philippines as a Peace Corps volunteer in 1977. Tenured in Tagalog in foreign service. So yeah, I have. It's been a long time since I've been there, but I know some of what you were saying. True, about how generous the people are, and how bad the plastic pollution was even back then. But I came across something about an organization called Plastic Bank, which is based out of Vancouver, BC, Canada. And basically, it seems that what their approach is to pay people that are living in coastal communities in underdeveloped countries to collect plastic from the ocean and to intercept it before it gets into the ocean. And then they recycle the materials. Seems kind of nice, and it's certainly a target audience I would like to help. But I'm not sure about the business model. I was wondering what you knew about them and if you had any thoughts about it.
Yeah, I know a fair amount about them. Basically, the market strategy is that in developing world, and like that's a broad thing to say, but let's say, I don't want to call them poor countries, but less rich countries. A lot of places don't have a formalized system of waste management in the way we understand it. We tend to like overlay our understanding of how things are utilized, discarded, and collected and recovered over the entire world. And that's not actually how different cultures manage these kind of things. So when you introduce a thing like a sachet, so like Recycle Bank is a response to the growing problem of multi-layered packaging. The reason Dow and DuPont, who are the biggest chemical companies in the world, merged was to share IP on multi-layered packaging. This is to open markets in less rich countries. Under the theory is you don't have enough money to buy a shampoo bottle this big, but you do a ketchup packet. And so, and it's actually more expensive, like from a volume standpoint. There's no value to these materials. But things like Recycle Bank from an investment standpoint are dark money propped up by fast-moving consumer goods companies. This is a PR strategy, ultimately, in my opinion, because it doesn't actually achieve a metric conservation outcome. It doesn't actually improve a person's life. It doesn't actually give them a reliable income stream. And it's also not like how to organize civil society. Like, you don't want a private company ad hoc managing waste by trying to pay citizens to collect. Like, you actually need a system, like that. And the system we show that Froilan Grata in The Story of Plastic, like, demonstrates in Manila is pro-democracy, it's pro-woman, it's it economically benefits. There is no pollution in a barangay when it's like put in there. So what I would say in short is Recycle Bank is the idea of, it's an ideation of sort of like a tech incubator Western mindset. And it's a continuing sort of colonial finger in poorer countries, because it's not like, straight up, I am not a fan of any system designed to solve a problem in a culture that isn't designed by that culture itself. That's probably, I could have just said that, sorry. But Do they have good intentions? Probably.
Yeah, yeah. They sell certificates of kind of like having a carbon-free footprint. They have a plastic-free footprint. And for a certain amount of money, you can buy that. And I almost did that for family members this Christmas. But I was wondering about the model, and you really addressed my concerns.
It also doesn't make money, just from a market-based standpoint. Like, let me be clear, this is like, it doesn't actually work.
Yeah, where's the plastic that they're going to recycle that's going to be valuable? Yeah.
I mean, just in general, the way to think of things is like, if you remember one thing, if a company is packaging something and letting you walk out of the store with it, they don't care what happens to it. That means it's that cheap that they don't care what happens to it at all. Where it ends up, we're now talking in place where it ends up in the world. We're now talking places that daily wages in some places are $1.50. And those people, those waste pickers making that wage are still not picking that stuff. So when we talk about the market, I mean, some of the most savvy people I've ever met in my life are like waste pickers making $1.50 a day, because like their efficiency model for sorting, because it's all the same labor, but knowing to get the right material, that's the payday. So it still may be 8-10 hours, but if you get the right material, that's the money.
Cool. Does anybody else have a question? I don't see any hands up, because I do know that Joe had a couple other. Dave is not following the rules. I'm not even going to call on you.
Okay.
So why don't you go ahead, Dave?
Well, a quick question. I mean, maybe it's quick. I don't know. But, obviously companies now are investing billions of dollars in new plastic factories. And we obviously know, and firsthand, because you've been there to see that plastic is hard to recycle because it's small, has mixed materials, has additives, has layers. What do you feel, or what do you know about the future of technology catching up with the recycling of plastic as opposed to or in conjunction with obviously campaigning against plastic? I mean, it seems to me that it's going to take decades to move away from plastic, because everybody's talking about these alternatives, and you see they're popping up left and right. We've got all kinds of compostable alternatives here in Olympia. We have no way to compost them because we don't have the facilities. So I guess my question is specific about the technology in order to separate and make recycling more of a realistic, outcome of making all these plastics as against these billions and billions of dollars going into making new plastics. I mean, it seems like it's almost like a dichotomous race, and I don't know, like, how do you feel that's working out, and do you think that technology is actually gonna... Yeah.
I mean, you definitely have a laggard in that, and that's the people without the money who don't make the plastic. So and I don't mean to be like that pat when I say it, but what's happening in Beaver County, Pennsylvania, which is part of the subject of the new film we're doing. There's a new ethane cracker that's going online. And very briefly, if you don't understand an ethane cracker, it's basically like natural gas liquids come out. There's lots of different hydrocarbons. One of them is ethane. It was a waste. You have to heat it and crack it to make ethylene, and then you can put it together and make polyethylene terephthalate, etc. So these facilities are insanely carbon intensive. They're insanely water intensive. And they're being built in like this in Appalachia, which is like timber boom bust, coal boom bust, like the petrochem is like, because there's a massive shale formation. But that one cracker plant that's about to go online, Shell is operating it. It will put out enough plastic to meet demand for 15% of global water bottle or soda bottle contain, like beverage bottles. Like they have the capacity to make 15% of global demand for 1 year. Like we're talking like an insane amount. So recycling is never going to catch up to that. It's not possible because why did industry tell us to recycle? Like, we think that somebody good was telling us to recycle for 40 years. It was actually somebody bad telling us to recycle for 40 years. And that was to bait and switch us. That was to like shift blame. And now production has just got to a point where like, unless we shut down those crackers and keep them from being permitted, the world will be awash with plastic. And it's not, and it's just like vaccines, like we have to do it on the global stage because we're still gonna feel the brunt if China puts coal into plastic, or Russia goes plastic, or Middle East pivots to plastic entirely. And they have, Middle East in particular, but in some of the Chinese. But so this gets back to the question, what gives me hope is like, what gives me hope on this front is we can shift a narrative to really talk about the people who are harmed, where it's being made, because it's existential. It's like everybody died of cancer. 2, let's not forget this is a fake industry. Like it is like its entire profit margin is predicated on pollution, predicated on oppression, and is buoyed by subsidies. If it were to actually compete in a capitalistic free market system, it would fail over and over and over and over again. There is no rosy outlook for it. So like, I think I'm undermining your question because I'm telling you the solution is ultimately you have to stop it at its source, because I don't believe recycling can catch up. I just don't. I do believe there's going to be better technologies and better compostables. Like the whole plastics movement is like, oh, we're afraid of the compostables. And I'm like, I get it. There are some that actually are biomimicry. But so all I'm saying is let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater. And like, you're never going to get me endorsing something that has a persistent organic pollutant in it, or a plasticizer or whatever. But there is ways to like take care of the stuff that we can't get rid of. That's just like things that we have to have are disposable. We have to limit that. We have to get creative. But this industry, it'll fail on it. Whether we are successful as activists or not, it'll fail on itself, because economically it's a house of cards.
Does anybody else have a question? Anyone?
Joseph's got one. Go for it, Joe.
There. Want to follow the rules. Well, just like I asked you about that plastic bank in Vancouver, what about Hollywood and Trex? Do you think that those are those products that are made from recycled plastics, is that a model that should be emulated by other producers for other products? Or is it just a way of perpetuating plastics in the environment?
Yeah, that's a tough one. So like, I just moved into a house in Boston Harbor. We have a Trex deck. It's
Mhm.
probably 20 years old. I can see it pitting. I know it's eroding microplastics. Like, I mean, I know these things. The cost benefit analysis between that and deforestation, which is a huge problem in the Pacific Northwest. I don't want to answer that from a policy standpoint because I don't have the expertise to actually do that like analysis like for you. I do believe that, like, yes, making things out of things that exist is inherently better from an energy standpoint. It is like hands down. Do we want to create a secondary economy out of waste materials? No, because that just entrenches that economy and makes it that much harder to fight from a policy standpoint. But what I'd be interested in trucks doing ultimately is figuring out how to keep their stuff from eroding without it being polluting. But yeah, when I went to like Lowe's, what would I buy? I'd probably buy trucks, because I live in the world.
Mhm. Mhm. Okay.
Because I'd rather microplastics went into my soil at my house than a tree being cut in a boreal forest. I don't know, like, you stumped me on that one. Like, I can't give you the, like, take that answer and please ask somebody more expert than that.
Yeah, well, life is full of trade-offs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amy?
Hey, great questions, Joe. Great discussion. Stiv, I wish everybody would watch your movie. My question is, after the national sword happened and we stopped sending all our stuff to China, I was really hopeful that there would be like an increase in the domestic the infrastructure for our recycling facilities. It doesn't seem like that's happening. I know like our local solid waste department, they've stopped collecting a lot of materials and they're just focusing on like what we have a market for, like those #1 plastic bottles or the yogurt containers. But you get people who come here from Seattle and they're just like, you can recycle everything, clamshells, all this stuff, and they feel so darn smug about it. Where's all that going now that it's not going to China?
Landfill. I mean, for the most part, like, there's actually been a lot of changes in statute that happened during the pandemic to start being able to divert stuff. There's a lot of laws governing what you can and cannot claim as diverting from landfill. And if you ship it overseas, you can claim that as a diversion, which makes your statistics look really good, even though you don't know what the end market of that, like, it's not your problem anymore. Globally, it's still our problem. I think, the problem is that plastic is it's just not super valuable at the end of life. And I don't know how to solve this problem at a local level because like I'm guilty of wish cycling still. Like, I mean, look at me, I'm like a DNA plastics dude. And like, I still put stuff in the recycling bin, like it should have a place to go. It's gotta have a home. And it doesn't. And I think like, I actually am looking forward to more and more municipalities banning collection. So one really quick story, Sacramento, mayor of Sacramento, when I was living there, banned the collection of all they were going to take is 1s, 2s, and 5s. And they were borderline on 5s. And there was such an outcry because everybody was like, I can't recycle anymore, that within 36 hours, he changed it, but it all went to landfill at that point, or incinerate. Well, not California, but other states incineration. And that's where it goes, unfortunately. And so I actually believe like one of the biggest levers in our movement is people in this country. Like one of the things that industry didn't like account for is that if you indoctrinate multi-generationally people into recycling, they expect that they get to recycle. We can actually like pull back the veil and say this doesn't work, and those people will be outraged, Republican or Democrat, doesn't matter. Like they will be outraged, and that will force an upstream systems change. So that is like the biggest organizable block we have on plastics issues, you know. I mean, in reproductive rights, it's Roe v. Wade. In our movement, it is that block of people.
Thank you.
Well, you guys, it is 8 o'clock. And since it is Stiv's birthday coming up, we probably don't want to keep him here all night. He's got some serious partying to do. So I'm wondering if it's okay with everybody if we can
Twin toddlers.
regularly talk.
I
That's a
would like
party.
you to meet my partner Marissa real quick.
Oh, cool.
She's been listening to this on the other side of our. This is Marissa.
Hi, everyone.
Her favorite sea animal is an octopus as well. So
Excellent.
I did interrupt you, Christine. I'm sorry, but I just wanted.
Oh gosh, no. Nice to meet you, Marissa. No, that's cool. I don't know what I was gonna say. It was probably something really good though.
Yeah.
Maybe we could just also. Oh, I know. If everybody could, it would be fun for us to pose for a picture. Is that all right, Stiv? We
Yeah.
always love social media Zoom posts. We get a lot of likes on those.
Get over here.
Oh, Marissa's in.
Zoom screenshot.
All right. So Amber and Liz, why don't you're ready? Okay, everybody, it's your photo opportunity.
I got it. Thank you all.
Okay. Thank
Good.
you.
Perfect.
Hey, anybody want to sing a happy birthday to Stiv real quick?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's do it. Okay, everybody. 1, 2, 3. Happy birthday
birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear.
Happy birthday to you.
Thank you all. It's like it's very nice to meet you all. And seriously, summer months we do offer our deck for chapter meetings, and
Fun.
I look forward to getting to know you all better. It's been tough, COVID, and also we have twin babies, so we're busy. But
Very cute babies. We got to see them.
anyway,
Briefly.
thank God, because otherwise I would have thrown them off a cliff. So, have a good night, y'all. Thank you.
Thank
you so
you.
much.
All right, bye.
And thanks to everybody.
Yeah, thanks everyone for coming.
Yeah, I think we're good to go. Just don't forget to pay attention to upcoming dates, because we're going to love the help for the beach cleanups and the cleanups downtown. And hopefully we'll have Stiv back at some point, because his new documentary, Breathe This Air, is going to be incredible. And so hopefully, since now we all know him and he lives here in Olympia,
So handy.
maybe we can be one of the first to do that film screening in person. Would be really cool. So anyway, thanks everybody for coming. Liz, Amber, did you guys want to say, is there any last thing?
I just put in a link in the chat for our federal Breakthrough from Plastic Pollution campaign that we've been having for a couple years. But for those of you interested in those big national changes that we need to our waste management, that's one of those big federal bills that we'll be lobbying again for this year during Ocean Recreation Hill Day in 2 weeks. So Christine and I will be speaking with Marilyn Strickland, correct?
Yep.
And
And hopefully Patty Murray and
some others. And it was Strickland, I think last year when we spoke with her,
Yeah.
she then became a co-sponsor, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right,
so, like immediately after we like had our Surfrider meeting with her and her staffers, she was like, sign me up. I'm a co-sponsor on the bill. So
Yeah.
your voices matter, and grassroots activism is a huge and critical component in this multi-pronged fight against the powers that be. And they are
Yes.
powerful.
Yeah, so please sign the Break Free from Plastic Pollution Act if you haven't. And then there's also a really good one I hope people search for and look up, and that's the Global Plastics Treaty.
Yep.
Because, and that one I think is really important too, because as we saw in the film, and as we already all know, that it is a global issue. And so I think getting our names and signing in on that, the Global Plastics Treaty, is a really important one to just get your name on.
Yeah, because as we all know, even if we ban something in the United States, those companies will just ship them overseas. They did it with
Yeah.
cigarettes. They did it with all the other things that were like, we've had enough. And they're like, that's fine. We'll sell it over there instead. So it's important not to externalize all of these problems onto countries that are already dealing with more than their fair share. So,
Yeah.
awesome. Well, thank you all so much, and have a great rest of your evening.
Yeah, thanks you guys. Hopefully we'll
Thank
see you
you. Good
on
night.
Zoom.
All right, thank you, Liz. Thank you, Christine.
Yeah,
Thank
nice to meet
you.
you, Joseph. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye, Mom, Dad.